You really think he'd want a fat waitress like you serving his family? The empty soda glass hit Sarah's hip so hard it sloshed, cool fizz trickling over the hem of her pressed black skirt. She winced, but shifted just enough to keep her balance, shoulders squared as the packed darkness of the Caruso estate screening room ate her up. Laughter flickered under the projector's hum, the film crackling to life as shadows jumped across rows of tufted red velvet seats. She caught her reflection in a mirrored sconce, a heavy-set silhouette, shoulders thick, arms strong from a decade of hauling crates at her uncle's ranch. A burst of perfume, all lilac and ambition, caught up to her. Behind it, the glimmer of a pale hand stacked with gold rings, Marcella, her ex, resplendent in skin-tight gymwear that made Sarah's own presence feel doubly obtrusive. Marcella's tongue snapped in slick Arabic, the insult sharp and low. This cow will break the floor under Don Byank's shoes. In the dim far corner, Don Emanuel Byank sat immobile, the only island of composure. Black on black suit, a heavy signet ring on his left hand, a hint of the Lion of Venice peeking beneath his cuff. His gaze found Sarah over the rim of his whiskey, a thing slow and carnivorous. Sarah's throat tightened. She wiped the soda from her skirt, set her tray straight, and because her late father's phrase echoed in her mind, whispered, "Keep your chin up and count backward if you're scared." The film's audio faded to a hush as Don Byank stood and the lights rose halfway. Every seat turned, and suddenly it was impossible not to notice her in the center of his world. Sarah wished she could melt into the velvet carpet, but instead she moved briskly down the aisle, blinking back the sting in her eyes from Marcella's voice. The boss's private screening room was all old money and Mafia muscle, the kind of place where whispers meant more than shouts. Plates clinked, thick cologne men shifted for her heavy steps. For a moment she focused on her tray, cheese squares, coins of cured meat, perfect lines, numbers. Counting was always safe. A voice stopped her, clean and deep. Your name." The cadence was clipped, unmistakably a command. Her heart lurched. "Sarah Morneau, sir. I'm just filling in for Alma tonight." She swallowed, resisting the urge to apologize again, feeling Marcella's glowering stare drilling into the back of her head. Don Byank studied her for too long. His eyes, an improbable gray, flicked from the damp on her skirt to the steady way her hands folded a napkin edge precise, like someone trained to survive chaos by making quiet order. He didn't smile, but he nodded to his right. Rocco, his compact bottoman, approached. "Rocco, see that no one disturbs Miss Morneau again." The boss's tone held a lazy finality. Sarah nearly flinched at her own name on his lips. There was no apology in his voice, nothing conciliatory or gentle. But Rocco stood between her and the aisle now, a brawn and black granite shield. Don Byank's gaze never left her, not even as he sipped his drink, not even when Marcella muttered under her breath. Sarah wanted to fade. Instead, she took a breath and recited her mental phrase, chin up, count backward. She offered the boss a napkin, folded perfectly into a star as she'd learned to do for difficult nights. The briefest curl of his mouth, approval. Her tray emptied faster than she expected, and as the credits rolled, she caught Don Byank's eyes on her once again. This time his gaze was a claim, unspoken, sharp, mine. It happened all at once during intermission. Marcella materialized, her sculpted arms crossed, phone angled to her own reflection, picking at Sarah's bib apron with those stabbing nails. "You remember last Christmas, right, Sarah? You spilled black coffee on my new Louboutin heels in front of the whole gym crew. What was your excuse? Your big bones couldn't clear a table." Several heads turned. Candles guttered under Marcella's lacerating smile. "Don Byank, I swear women like her are bad for business. You should see how she mangled bookings at my last pop-up class." A hush fell as she leaned in closer, deliberately dropping her voice into Arabic. "Why let her serve, Emanuel? She'll eat the profits before dessert." The syllables were swift, slippery, meant to exclude, to make Sarah's cheeks burn. But Emanuel understood more than anyone guessed. "No need to repeat yourself, Marcella," he replied quietly in flawless Arabic, a razor under velvet. "Some people eat to survive, some starve for the sake of appearances." His meaning landed hard. Marcella jerked her chin, unamused. "Isn't it funny she thinks she belongs in here?" Marcella switched to English again, talking for the crowd. "I did Sarah a favor years ago, Don. She wanted to join my gym but couldn't keep up. You should have seen her, people called her the cow." Marcella's tone bled pride, claiming the right of the tormentor who'd built an empire on fitness videos and mean girl viral clips. Don Byank's patience was a knife unsheathed. He rose, towering, the lines of the lion tattoo on his visible wrist tensing in shadow. Enough, he declared, voice leveled for power. Marcella laughed, a high trill, deflecting, emboldened by the circle of gym sharks and socialites hungry for a tumble. Relax, Don. You might want loyalty, but you'll get weakness if you let soft women near your bloodline. She's an embarrassment. Marcella shrugged, signaling a cluster of her followers. Doesn't matter what language I use, she won't understand anything except free food. Sarah stared at her shoes, every muscle locked. No tears, no apology. She heard her father again. What's that thing he always said? If you're outnumbered, answer in the tongue they can't twist. So she looked Marcella dead in the eyes and replied, steady and perfect, in crisp Arabic. A real woman stands where others only pose. Cowardice wears lipstick too. A shock ran through the room. Half the Mafia table looked at Don Byank for a cue, the other half studied Sarah with new caution. At that precise moment, Rocco rushed forward, phone tight to his ear, eyes wild. Emmanuel, serious trouble. The Russian buyer from Federal Hill is threatening to break tonight's contract. They want to see you now. There's talk of bringing in the Glazov Bratva. The boss didn't flinch. When? He barked, switching gears instantly. Rocco answered, they want a meeting at the Belmont Club, 60 minutes. If you're late, they'll walk with the shipment. Time tightened like a fist. Eyes darted to Sarah as if she might shrink. Instead, she folded a napkin with practiced grace, locked eyes with Rocco. Count backward from 10 if you want the room to steady, she said softly, a private gift. Marcella watched, lips parted, not understanding, not in any language. Emmanuel's voice split the silence. Rocco, get the cars. Sarah comes with us. She was swept from the screening room, Marcella's hateful stare chasing the hem of her skirt, out through the corridor lined with silent family portraits and into the bright night where engines rumbled and shields reformed around her. Inside the long black Mercedes, Sarah sat beside Don Byank, closer than she'd ever imagined to anyone that dangerous. The city streamed by in broken gold, the chaos outside muted in the hush of leather and Italian cologne. He didn't look at her for a long time, not until the car swung off Atwell's Avenue into the shadowed drive of the Belmont Club did he speak. Marcella, he said, full name crisp, was your ex. She nodded once. I was 19. She was louder always, made me believe her version of me. Sometimes I think I don't know who I really am anymore. His gaze found her direct and unsettling. You're different from the others, Sarah Morno. I watch detail, the way you fold a napkin like you're folding time, the way you listen, even when they try to humiliate you. Sarah's chest ached with both shame and something unfamiliar, pride. My father used to say, a woman's worth isn't measured in eyes that stare, but in the quiet she can withstand. Emmanuel's voice softened, smart man. She laughed, caught off guard, maybe just tired. The car stopped, 2 bodyguards flanked the door, but Emmanuel dismissed them with a flick of his hand. His left hand, where his signet ring glinted and the black lion tattoo crouched bold against his skin. You're safe with me, Sarah Morno. His cadence thickened, her name drawn longer, weightier. No one touches you. He stepped out, offered his hand. She took it, startled by the heat. Inside, the Belmont Club buzzed with tension, Russians huddled near the private whiskey bar, their briefcases shut tight, translators quietly speaking into earpieces. Lines were drawn everywhere in language, in loyalty, in blood. They wound their way past a wall of frosted glass toward the club's back war room. Bodyguards, Rocco, and another sharp-faced man in a Brioni suit, Lazar Glazov, notorious for collecting confidences and breaking them with equal glee. Sarah's skin prickled, she leaned in, her voice lower. You're hiding something, she whispered, not just them, you. Emmanuel didn't blink. Tonight's contract isn't only money, they want to buy into our family, they believe someone here is leaking information. Sarah let his words settle. The air tingled with expectation. For a heartbeat, she wondered what it would feel like to belong, really belong, to know her presence commanded more than silence. He brushed her hand, light and brief, voice lower, gentler now. I want you in the next room, safe, listen, watch. If anything happens, Rocco gets you out no matter what. He paused, looking hard into her. Promise me, Sarah. She drew from the phrase she'd learned, chin up, count backward. I'll listen, I always do. They moved as one down the diamond-lit corridor into the back office where everything would change. A storm pressed at the glass. She could not, be a bystander any longer. The war room was a cold chamber of glass, steel, and threat. Maps of Providence lay spread on the table, but what caught Sarah's eye was the ledger, open and exposed, numbers crawling in unfamiliar code. She hovered near the doorway, heart racing, replaying every word Marcella had flung at her, every slight as one of the Russian buyers handed Emmanuel a slip, a coded phrase in rapid-fire Cyrillic. The interpreter mumbled, unsure. But Sarah didn't need the interpreter. Her mind drew connections, letter sequences, the way she'd always done when frightened, count, decode, reorder. Something flickered in a margin, a familiar pattern, NSA frequency, her old work notched in her memory. Before the ranch, before heartbreak, she'd buried that part of herself. Now, as Lazar Glazov scrawled his threat in perfect Russian, Sarah stepped forward, voice ringing out crystal clear in Russian. You won't walk from this contract, Glazov. The coded wire is a bluff. The ledger you think is protected, 3 errors here, here, and here. With trembling but certain fingers, she pointed. Rocco half rose, stunned. How the? Sarah coolly met Emmanuel's gaze, a tiny smile. The pattern solved itself under her touch. Federal Hill is not so far from D.C. if you can read in layers. Lazar paled. Who is she? His hands gripped the table. Don Bianc answered at full bore now, pride and danger mixing. Sarah Morno, she is with me. The interpreter, now cautious, double-checked the codes, eyes widened. She's not wrong. Emmanuel moved in, predatory, lifting Sarah's chin for every Kaporjime, every outsider to see. This is my family's cryptographer, my queen in this room. His voice thundered. For the first time, even Marcella, brought in under false pretense as a side consultant, looked suddenly breakable. That was the moment Sarah noticed Marcella's phone still open, a thread of messages in both English and Russian. Hidden contacts, prices, shipment schedules, she was Glazov's inside source. Layer 1 insult merged seamlessly with Layer 2 betrayal. Sarah's answer was short, hard, a line of defense. You trust a coward, you lose your crown. Capos rushed Marcella, her bravado crumpling. The Russians, recognizing the power shift, began to negotiate desperately, but Sarah's fingers danced nimbly through the ledger, unraveling every shadow account, every double cross. At the head of the table, Emmanuel didn't just watch anymore, he reached for Sarah, his palm cradling her jaw, voice rough as gravel. All debts paid. You stay with me now, Sarah. Consequences zipped through the room. Marcella was led out, no stiletto pride, just silence and cuffs. Glazov's men shrank, their power broken not by muscle, but by the woman nobody thought to fear. It ended back at the mansion, dawn creeping across the hill, a new quiet drawn in layers of silver and blue over the Rhode Island sky. The household had stopped whispering her name like a slur. Now they spoke it with awe. In Emmanuel's private study, Sarah found herself at his side, both atop the marble balcony, watching Federal Hill come alive. Below, the fusillade of the night's chaos faded, replaced by the hush of fealty restored and enemies ousted. Rocco presented the family signet, heavy gold carved with the Lion of Venice. Emmanuel turned the band in his thick fingers, then publicly pressed it into Sarah's palm. He addressed the circle, capos, lieutenants, even Emmanuel's mother, her eyes glinting approval. Sarah Morno is not a servant, she is not a target, she sits at my right. Silence deepened, acceptance undeniable. He turned to her, voice low, almost intimate. Sarah, he said, no last name necessary now, you know why you're here with me. She felt dawn burn the stone beneath her, pride sharp in her chest. Because I answer in every language they can't twist, she said, and because I never broke when they tried. Emmanuel lifted her hand, slid the lion ring onto her finger, unmistakable, public, irrevocable. Possession, protection, promise. Sarah faced the family, not a whisper of apology left in her voice. From here on out, no one eats before the queen, not in this house, not anywhere. If you loved watching her transform from invisible to untouchable, hit that like button. Share this story with your fellow dark romance addicts. Subscribe to the channel for more thrilling Mafia romance stories. See you in the next story. The cold marble pressed under Sarah's wrist as she turned from the balcony, the ring heavy on her finger. The room had changed in the last hour. The same dark velvet, the same echo of echoed footsteps, but every pair of eyes now sought her out with the sharp expectancy reserved for those who'd snatch power from the jaws of hazard. Somewhere, candles guttered, leftovers of the night's earlier farce, and the aroma of spent adrenaline still mingled with old cologne and fresh promise. Don Byank's mother, regal as a Byzantine antique statue, stepped forward. Her hair steel and black framed a face that missed nothing, a smirk ghosting her lips. She pulled Sarah in for a kiss on each cheek, then pressed a soft prayer in Italian to Sarah's ear. La forza ci hai mostrato sarai temuta e amata allo stesso tempo. The strength you've shown, you'll be feared and loved, both. Sarah squeezed the older woman's hand, pulse fluttering. She recognized the calculus in that acceptance. It was a blessing and also a challenge. Now, as the lieutenants filed out, Rocco lingered at the door. He gave Sarah a crooked, conspiratorial grin. Never seen them look at anyone like that, except maybe when the feds kicked in the wrong door in 7. Queen suits you. Sarah grinned shyly, but she felt it. A tectonic shift inside, the slow stirring up from the ballast of humiliation into something keener. Power had never been more than a fantasy. Now it hummed low and electric in her bones. Don Byank's hand found the small of her back, warm, grounding, his voice bearish, softened by exhaustion threaded between them. You did more than anyone expected, do you know that? She shook her head, voice barely above a whisper. I only did what I've always done. I saw the pattern. I couldn't let them win with a lie. For a moment, Emmanuel was silent, eyes digging into hers, not searching for weakness, but for the point where courage shaded into vulnerability. A king is nothing without someone who cuts through all the noise, all the threat, all the self-doubt. He thumbed the ring on her hand. You see me for what I am, not just what I represent. He led her into his study, the one he opened only for business and for those he trusted beyond blood. It was startlingly intimate in its ordered chaos. Shelves of trial ledgers, childhood photos tucked beside boxes of cigars, a battered chessboard mid-game, black and white pieces held in perpetual contest. Sarah sat, hands restless. I'm afraid I'll wake up and you'll send me back to the ranch or the kitchen and none of this will matter. Emmanuel sat across from her, folding himself like a wolf at ease, one never fully safe to approach. Say it, whatever it is, you earn the right to speak freely every time. Amidst the hush of dawn pressing up against the glass, Sarah found her tongue, brittle at first but steadying. I didn't think I'd ever belong anywhere after how Marcella undid me. I thought I'd keep my head down forever, carry trays, and no one would ever see me. But you saw me. He stood, came to her, knelt, unthinkable, this man who could order executions with a phone call. His hands bracketed her knees, anchoring her. What she did to you, what you survived, makes you more, not less. I see the weight you carry, Sarah, and I swear, here you are never invisible again. His voice grew hoarse, raw from sleeplessness and relief. All my life, I trusted only those born to this, my mother, Rocco, a few men forged in the dirt of back streets, but I need someone who sees through deception to the bone. He looked up at her, vulnerability sparking in the lines at the corners of his eyes. I need you. Something unfamiliar twisted inside Sarah, gratitude, disbelief, a pulse of wants that had nothing to do with survival and everything to do with being chosen. She traced the lion on her ring, the metal already warming to her skin. Say it again, she whispered, not quite trusting her senses. I need you in every way. Those who loved you small can go to hell, Sarah Morno. The last vestiges of humiliation slid away. She touched his cheek, thumb brushing the hard jawline, the bristles there a proof of reality. I let myself be small for too long, I'm ready to be seen. A sigh escaped him, a surrender held in for decades. He rose, drawing her up with him, and for a moment the air between them thinned into something volatile and sweet. There was a new knock at the study door. Rocco, again awkward, sheepish but determined. Boss, Sarah, there's a crowd gathering outside the gates, reporters mixed with Marcella's leftover gym crowd. Rumors are flying wild as hell. She's already posted about the Mafia queen on her feed, might need you both out front. Emmanuel groaned, but Sarah stifled a laugh. Some things never change. But Rocco only grinned, his lopsided mouth a promise. Nah, they're not here for Marcella now, they're here for you. Emmanuel squeezed Sarah's hand. Ready? Under the swagger, his tone was gentle, uncertain. He would not force her now, not after everything. Sarah drew a breath, feeling the cool drag of the lion ring, its promise, its threat. Shoulders squared, she pulled his hand with hers. Let them see, but this time they don't set the story, I do. They swept from the study, through hallways thick with the scent of newly cut flowers and gun oil, portraits giving way to open windows. The front foyer gleamed, marble floors echoing with the hush of anticipation. Sarah blinked in the press of early sun, crowd already thick past the gates. Phones up, flashbulbs ready, whispers cresting in the half-fearful awe reserved for rising legends. She hesitated for a breath, a battle with the same old impulse to shrink. But Emmanuel's thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, a silent, steadying pulse. They stepped outside together. As soon as the gates opened, the crowd surged, not with jeers or derision as Sarah remembered from her years in shadow, but with a feverish curiosity, even respect. Someone shouted, "Is it true? Did you save the family? Are you running things now?" Rocco barked back, "There's only one queen tonight," half a joke, half a challenge. Reporters clustered, cameras wagging. Sarah held up a hand not to shield herself but to signal calm. The hush that followed was different now, reverential, expectant, not predatory. Marcella's clique denuded, uncertain, hugged the outer edge, their eyes wary. Marcella herself was nowhere to be seen, likely detained or hatching schemes in her own private purgatory. Sarah spoke first, voice ringing. "I am Sarah Morno. I serve no one but my own name and the house that trusts me. I have nothing to hide. If you want a story, ask it straight, but you'll get the truth or nothing." Someone ventured, "How did you end up here?" Sarah glanced at Emmanuel, who gave her a slight, encouraging nod, permission, partnership. She replied, "By seeing what others miss, by surviving when they tried to starve me of dignity, by remembering my worth is not measured by anyone else's appetite." A ripple passed through the crowd. Someone else called, are you really part of the family?" Emmanuel's answer was thunder. He raised her left hand, made sure every flashbulb caught the glint of the lion. "She is family, she is my equal." After, in the abrupt quiet, Sarah caught sight of one hesitant face at the edge of the crowd, Alma, the regular waitress. There was pride there and maybe longing. Sarah called out, surprising herself, "Alma, come inside when this is done. I want you at my table tonight." The offer rang out, no apology, no diminishing, only new order. There would be questions, new threats, fresh alliances to broker, and no shortage of hungry eyes waiting for a misstep. But for the first time, Sarah did not dread the hunger around her. She stood with spine unbowed, ring glinting, her chin up, counting backward not to hide from fear but to measure her ascent. Emmanuel bent to her ear, rough and private. "We'll outlast them all, you know." She smiled, a slow, quiet miracle. "Let them count me out, I only ever needed one person to count me in." From the gates of the Caruso estate to the deepest circles of Providence power, word spread before the morning burned away the last of the night. Let them remember, not every queen looked the part, but this one could not be erased. A new order was writ, one napkin, one ledger, one unbreakable woman at a time. And this time, Sarah Morno would never be invisible again. The morning sun spilled gold across the marble as Sarah lingered at the threshold, hands laced in Emmanuel's grasp. The last of the reporters drifted off, murmurs about the lion's queen trailing in their wake. Rocco gave a two-finger salute before disappearing inside. The family, with their unblinking stares and hard edges, dispersed, softer now under her gaze. Her whole body thrummed, part terror, part exhilaration. She felt the weight of the ring, the promise, the risk warm on her finger. A hesitant cough broke her reverie. Alma stood near the foyer, cap in hand, ghost of a smile playing at her lips. "I thought you might forget." Alma said softly, not quite meeting Sarah's eyes. Never, Sarah replied, her voice more certain than she felt. You carried me on worse shifts than this. Come, there's room at the table now. Alma's face broke open, radiant. The scent of coffee wafted from the kitchen, a simple comfort against the day's strange newness. Emmanuel squeezed Sarah's hand. Come eat, he said in his raspy basso, already moving to join Alma in the dining room. We start the day as a family. The three sat at the long oak table, flanked by empty velvet chairs that would fill soon enough with new loyalists, old skeptics, perhaps even strangers. Alma poured coffee, Sarah steadied the cream jug with a napkin, winking. For luck, she quipped, and Alma grinned, nerves easing. Emmanuel watched them, his expression shifting from shrewd to fiercely proud. At last he said, In this house we build new legends, today let it begin with us. Sarah tipped her mug to his, then to Alma's, and finally, in silent celebration, lifted it high. The years of swallowing shame, of shrinking herself to fit someone else's table, faded. No more. Dawn flickered on the lion ring, her ring, and Sarah let herself believe. She would hold this seat not through threat or beauty or privilege, but by the grace of her stubborn mind and the courage to claim her place aloud. As they drank, laughter swelled, an easy human sound. The world outside prowled and watched, hungry for stories. Let them watch. For the first time, Sarah didn't mind. She was counted in, she was home.